Greetings, friends. I'm Reverend Charline Manuel, and welcome to Unity's 11 a.m. prayer service. Today, I join you from Orlando, Florida. Since COVID-19, Unity has had prayers from all over the country, all over the world, to facilitate this 11 a.m. prayer service, instead of being at Unity Village where we would normally and usually be. So it's an honor to join you today. Today is a little different of a prayer service. For one thing, it will be a little bit longer so that, number one, I can certainly hold in prayer with you the constants that are on our daily prayer lists and praying for you, your loved ones, and responding to your prayer requests that have been sent in to Silent Unity. Always and foremost, know that Silent Unity is the light that shines for you. But today, in our prayer, I also want to address a concern that has many of us here in the United States deeply troubled, and I want to address that and then bring it into the light of our spiritual teachings and our understanding of truth. So please join me as we just send big love, the light of love, divine love, to all of the prayer associates who pray with us on a daily basis, praying for me and you, for all the things that are on our minds and our hearts today. They respond to our calls, they answer letters, they respond to emails. We are so grateful, and we send great love to all the associates. In fact, all of those who are working at Unity to make sure that during this time we have a place to go to find and hold that inspiration that we so desperately need in times such as this. We send prayers and thoughts of gratitude to the many churches, temples, synagogues, mosques, houses of prayer all over the world who are praying and holding the light of truth so that we have the inspiration and the hope infused into our spirit. And they do so with great generosity and love, reminding us to not lose heart, to never give up, but to lean on our faith and to lean on the understanding of spirit. We send thoughts of thank you to all of those first responders, those people who are working on the front lines, our community leaders, who are all striving to do the highest and the best to make sure that we are home, those of us who are home, that we are safe and that we are well. And as we begin to move back out into the world and try to find some new normal, that we do so in ways that are respectful of each other and safe for all of us. And today I want to add a special prayer as we send thoughts of compassion to the family of George Floyd, to the very soul of George Floyd. And I say that today, just offering that you will hold that family in prayer. For at the midst of all that we're experiencing, we don't want to lose hope that there is a family who is grieving in the midst of all that we are experiencing. You know, if you've watched the news or been a part of social media for the last week, you know that we have shifted our focus from the global pandemic that we are still striving to get through to what has now become a nationwide protest over yet another senseless killing of an unarmed and in this case, handcuffed African American man killed at the hand, or should I say the knee, of a white officer, a white police officer. Caught on tape, shared on social media, so it's all over the world, and then shown on the television networks for all to see, for our children to see. I've been a Unity minister for 25 years. This month, in fact, 25 years. And when tough times come for people, two questions I would get over and over and over and over again, and they remain to this day. Why is this happening? And what should we do? Well, being the Unity student that I am, I remember the words that have stuck with me for many, many, many years, and I let them guide me whenever these questions come to me. And the late Ernest Wilson, an early New Thought metaphysician, he once said, "First go to God and then to man as God directs." So I am first guided to share with you where I was divinely guided to go for part of the answer for me that I could share with you. And I was guided to the works of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In his 1958 book, Stride Toward Freedom. Dr. King talks about in that book what sparked the bus boycott that lasted nearly a year and a half. But what sparked it? What sparked the arrest? And he said that arrest, it was a precipitating factor of that, Rosa Parks was indeed arrested on that day. But he said that there was a deeper cause behind all that happened. That was the movement toward the idea of peaceful protest. And he says this, and I'm quoting, he says, "The cause lay deep in the record of similar injustices. Actually, no one can understand the action of Mrs. Parks unless he realizes that eventually the cup of endurance runs over, and the human personality cries out, 'I can take it no longer.'" So I read that and I came to think about this and truly understand that the cause of the protests that we're seeing now, and we're certainly praying that those protests will remain peaceful, realign themselves with being peaceful protests. But he says the cause lay deep in a record of similar injustices. George Floyd is but one of many, many, many such instances, and a long history of decades and decades of the killing of Black or African American people at the hands of white people, excuse me. And this precipitated this event that we are now experiencing. But what he said is, no one can understand that unless you have been to that place where he says, eventually the cup of endurance, it runs over. We've held as long as we can, as much as we can. And he said, then the human personality just takes over and says, enough is enough is enough. And I liken that to what we're experiencing now. Too often we've been in this situation and we've seen it over and over again. And sometimes we talk about it for a little bit, but then it happens again and again. Oh, there may be a task force of diversity and inclusion and equity, and we look at it and it's maybe studied, and then here we are again. So my first place is to go to Dr. King's understanding and idea of this, and saying the human cry that we are experiencing as people are protesting in the street, it comes from a place of saying enough is enough. And please notice that those people who are protesting in many of the cities around the country are not all Black people. It's Black and white. It's gay and straight. It's our young people. It's our older people. It's Hispanic. It's people of different cultures all coming out and saying enough is enough of the mistreatment of people because of the color of their skin or who they are. The second place I was guided to go is my unity principles. And in unity, we have 5 core teachings, and prayer is one of them. And in unity, we believe in the power of prayer, of aligning ourselves with truth, and then standing in that place and saying, what is the truth that I know? What is the truth that I know? And I speak that to God is. God is. That there is a presence, that there is a power greater than my human expression of what I think of as me. God is. And there is a goodness, there is a wholeness, and there is an order to all that unfolds out of the awareness that God is. I invite you to just hold that. God is. And you can breathe that into your spirit and let it follow by saying, I am. God is. I am. That there is only one presence, that there is only one power. It is God, and God is absolute good. God is. I am. Let that be the place from which we go forward then to consider the second question. What should I do? We may even ask in prayer for ourselves, what is mine to do? I was guided to go thirdly to a place I'm often guided to go, and that is to my Bible. I'm a minister. To go to my Bible, and I found myself in the 2nd chapter of the book of James, verse 17. And in that scripture, it says, faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. Some pretty strong words. Oh, I know, in truth, faith is never really dead. Sometimes we don't act from it. Sometimes we don't acknowledge it. Sometimes we don't even realize it. So it's never really dead. But in terms of our acting on our faith in such a way that we are assured that there is a presence, there is a power that is good, and we allow ourselves to live from that power in full faith that it is active within us and within our world, sometimes we find ourselves in a place wondering, is our faith dead? But what the writer of that scripture is telling us to do is we hold our faith, we live in our faith, we do our prayers, we say our prayers, but then it comes a time that we live our faith. We put it into action. In fact, Unity's 5th principle is that of action. And so those who find themselves taking to the streets and protesting, they're living out of a faith without works is dead, and maybe their faith is not exactly aligned with how your faith is. But for whatever reason, as that cup of endurance has overflowed and they're experiencing a time that says, I have to do something because there needs to be change. People want their voices heard. No, really heard. Their pain acknowledged. And their demand for change being recognized. Action. So what is that action? What is ours to do? Well, first, as always, as Ernest Wilson says, first go to God and then to man as God directs. We should all be in that place and asking the Spirit of God within us, what is mine to do? And yes, some of us are guided to take to the streets in peaceful protests. In peaceful protest. Things get out of hand, but our intent is to go and be a part of peaceful protests. So much change has come from protests throughout our history. You may be guided to send a letter to your federal senators or to Congress and say enough is enough. We're demanding policies be changed because there is a systemic problem that is happening over and over and over again in our social and economic expression of how people are living, not just in this country, but even in the world. And we're demanding change. We're demanding policies that will call for systemic change and make a difference in people's lives and bring us to a place of justice. Dr. King said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I dare say you and I have to be benders to help that arc bend a little bit closer to justice. You may be guided to write a letter to your local authorities, your local leaders, your community leaders, those who are a part of changing what's happening in your very own community so that people feel safe and that the social problems that exist there in housing and education and employment, those things that need to be changed, that have built up in that cup of endurance that now just overflows and said, something's got to be changed. You may be a person who have maybe shied away from having those courageous conversations. And so you may be guided to educate yourself about what are the social or the socioeconomic problems that plague our communities around the country and around the world. What is that about? If you have no direct understanding about it, to find out what is there about it, an effort to be more understanding so that we can find a place of common ground and that our relationships can begin to be restored so that we honor, love, appreciate, and respect each other's and can genuinely be kind from the highest and best of who we are. Dear friends, if you will join me sometime today to light a candle. In our scripture, it says, let there be light, but I'm inviting you to let there be light in your heart today. Let there be light of understanding what is next yours to do. The light of wisdom so that there is a clarity, not just from our intellect, but from the very heart of spirit that guides us always to the highest and the best for ourselves, for our children, for our communities, for our country, for our world. Let there be the light of compassion flowing throughout the peaceful protest that's going on all around the country today. compassion for those who are hurt and hurting and feeling quite broken in the moment until some change is demonstrated. And compassion for those of us maybe who don't understand, but we're willing to try to learn what it is for us to understand so that we can be better citizens of our community, of our country, of our world. Let there be a light of understanding that there is divine right action on the part of our leaders, political and community, business, that there is divine right action. How do we go forth? And having another task force, a committee on diversity and inclusion, that's great. Equity, yeah, that's great. But we've got to put our faith into action, our prayers into action. You've heard the prayer and the saying, pray and move your feet. So let that be divine right action on behalf of humankind. Let there be light upon these United States of America and our world. Let there be light. Please join me in affirming the prayer of protection as I close. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is